Human beings often believe that for life to move in the right direction, they must constantly act and control everything. We try to hold on to a relationship, try to force a career path, try to make life unfold according to our own plans. But the more people attempt to control things, the more everything begins to feel heavy, as if life itself were quietly resisting them. Carl Jung believed that behind this impulse lies the ego, the part of the mind that always wants certainty and safety. Yet beneath the ego, there exists a deeper layer of the soul, where intuition, the unconscious, and what many traditions call the guidance of God, quietly operate. When we try to force life according to our own will, we are often moving against that deeper current. And when that happens, life begins to send clear signals. Everything slows down, the energy inside gradually fades, and plans that once seemed certain suddenly collapse. According to Jung, those moments are sometimes not failures, but the way life forces us to stop so that we can listen to deeper guidance. In this video, we will explore why sometimes the wisest thing you can do is not to try harder, but to stop forcing things and allow God to guide your life. And perhaps, when you understand this, you will look at what is happening in your life in a completely different way. Number 1, the illusion of having to do something when the ego mistakes action for safety. Most of us grow up with a very familiar belief. When there is a problem, we must do something immediately. If a relationship begins to crack, we try to speak more, explain more, repair more. If a career path becomes unclear, we rush to search for a new plan, a new goal, a new strategy. If a sense of anxiety appears inside, we immediately try to fill it with action. In the mind of the ego, action is equal to safety. Doing something, whether it is right or wrong, still makes us feel that we are in control of our lives. But from the perspective of analytical psychology, this is one of the deepest illusions of human beings. Carl Jung once remarked very clearly about this tendency when he said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls." This statement is not only a psychological observation, it is also a warning. Instead of stopping to listen to what is happening inside, the ego often chooses the easier path: more action, more control, and forcing life to follow a certain direction. This creates a temporary feeling that we are being proactive. But deep inside, it is often only a subtle way of avoiding the truth of the soul. I remember a friend of mine named Sophia. She was the kind of person everyone thought was very energetic and highly driven. Sophia always had a plan for everything. If work became difficult, she would immediately set a new goal. If life felt slightly empty, she would sign up for a course, plan a trip, or start a new project. Her schedule was always full. But once, during a very long conversation late in the evening, Sophia admitted something she had never told anyone before. She said that sometimes she was afraid of empty moments. When there was nothing to do, she began to feel a vague uneasiness. And to avoid that feeling, she quickly searched for something new to do. Sophia's story actually reflects what many people are experiencing. We constantly do something not necessarily because it is needed, but because busyness makes us feel safe. The ego believes that if we stop, everything will collapse. So it pushes us to keep moving forward, keep acting, keep trying to control. But life does not operate entirely according to the logic of the ego. There are periods when constant action does not bring us closer to our path. In fact, it may even move us further away from it. Imagine that the human soul is like a deep lake. When the surface of the water is constantly disturbed, we cannot see its bottom. The harder we stir it, the more turbid the water becomes. Only when the surface becomes still can we begin to see what lies beneath. The human mind works in a similar way. When we constantly act because of anxiety, fear, or the desire to control, we make the surface of our soul chaotic. And in that state, it becomes very difficult to hear the subtle signals from within. Jung believed that the human soul is not merely a rational machine. Beneath our consciousness exists a deeper layer of the psyche, a place that contains intuition, symbols, and a form of wisdom that the ego cannot fully control. Many spiritual traditions call this deeper layer by different names, but in the experience of many people, it is also the place where they sense the quiet presence of God, a deeper form of guidance that the ego cannot force or command. When the ego rushes into action too quickly, it often ignores the signals coming from this deeper layer. And because of that, many people feel that even though they are doing many things in their lives, they still do not truly feel that they are moving in the right direction. They are busy, yet empty inside. They keep moving forward, yet they do not know where they are going. The paradox is that when people stop treating action as a shield that protects them, they begin to realize something very different. True safety does not come from controlling everything. It comes from the ability to listen to oneself. When we no longer feel the need to rush into action simply to calm the ego, we begin to have space to recognize what is truly happening within our soul. The deeper meaning here is this: life does not always require more action. Sometimes the most necessary thing is not to try harder, but to pause long enough to understand why we are trying. When people stop confusing action with safety, they begin to realize that calmness, listening, and honesty with oneself are the true foundations of wise decisions. And from that stillness, a deeper direction of life begins to appear, a path not forced by the ego, but gradually revealed by the quiet guidance of the soul. Number 2, when the soul withdraws its energy, why everything suddenly stops flowing. When people begin to realize that constant action does not always bring clarity, they often enter another experience, quieter, yet also more difficult to understand. This is the moment when everything in life suddenly stops flowing. Plans that once progressed smoothly begin to slow down. Work becomes heavier. Efforts that once brought results now seem ineffective. Many people describe this feeling as trying to row a boat on a river that has run dry. You keep rowing, you keep trying, but the boat does not move. A literary story can help us imagine this clearly. In the novel The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, the old fisherman Santiago has days when he sails out without catching a single fish. Other fishermen begin to think that his luck has run out, but Santiago does not panic. He does not throw his nets everywhere in desperation. He understands that the sea has its own rhythm. Some days the sea is full of fish, and some days the ocean is completely silent. A fisherman cannot force the ocean to give him what he wants. What is notable is not that Santiago catches no fish, but how he responds to the silence of the sea. He does not try to resist it. He accepts that sometimes the ocean needs its own time. The inner life of human beings operates according to a similar rhythm. There are phases when everything flows naturally. You work and opportunities appear. You make efforts and results come. But there are also phases when that flow suddenly slows down. When that happens, the ego often misunderstands and believes that we need to try harder. In Jungian psychology, human life is not governed only by willpower or plans. Beneath consciousness exists a deeper center of the psyche, where intuition, meaning, and the true direction of each person's development are held. When we move closer to that path, energy often appears naturally. We feel interested, motivated, and we sense that we are moving in the right direction. But when the ego tries to force life toward a direction that is no longer suitable, the first thing that usually disappears is not opportunity, but energy. Jung once wrote a sentence worth reflecting on. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. This rarely happens suddenly. It begins very subtly. A little fatigue, a little loss of enthusiasm, and gradually the feeling that everything in life becomes heavier than before, even though you are still doing the same things. To understand this more clearly, imagine that you are trying to grow a tree in soil that does not suit it. You water it more, add more fertilizer, and care for it more carefully. But the tree still grows weakly, not because you care for it incorrectly, but because that soil is not meant for it. When the tree is moved to more suitable ground, it begins to grow almost naturally. No forcing, no excessive effort, only the right environment. Human psychological energy functions in the same way. When you move in the right direction of your development, energy naturally appears. But when you force yourself along a path that no longer belongs to you, that energy gradually withdraws. And what confuses many people is that they think they need to try harder, when what is truly necessary is sometimes to stop. In modern life, many people experience this state without recognizing it. They work hard, set many goals, and constantly push themselves forward. But inside, they feel tired and empty, not because they are weak, but because the flow of their energy is moving toward a direction that no longer belongs to them. From Jung's perspective, when the soul withdraws energy, it does not do so to punish us. It does so to prevent us from continuing further down the wrong path. If energy continued to flow into that path, we might travel very far before realizing that we had lost our way. But when the energy withdraws, the ego is forced to slow down and reconsider its direction. For many people, these slower periods are also the moments when they begin to sense that a deeper form of wisdom is operating in life, something that many spiritual traditions call God. Not as a force that compels life to unfold according to our wishes, but as a quiet guidance that sometimes appears precisely in the moments that force us to stop. Periods when life suddenly becomes slower often carry a deep meaning. They are like a silent signal from within asking you to reconsider your direction. When you stop forcing everything to continue as before, you begin to notice things you previously could not see, your true desires, deeper values, and sometimes an entirely different path. Therefore, when you enter a phase in which everything seems to stop flowing, what you need to do is not panic or force yourself forward at all costs. What you need to do is simply slow down long enough to observe where your energy is truly alive and where it is gradually draining away. Sometimes that very listening will open a direction that you could not previously see. And if you have ever experienced a period when everything in life suddenly slowed down like this, leave a comment. I've been there. Sometimes, just a few simple words are enough to remind us that many other people are walking through the same journey. Number 3. When the signals are ignored, how the unconscious forces you to stop. The moment when the flow of life begins to slow down rarely appears suddenly. Before everything truly stops, life usually sends us many smaller signals. But the problem is that most people do not notice them, or they notice them but choose to ignore them. And when those subtle signals are not heard, the unconscious is forced to use stronger ways to make us stop. From Carl Jung's perspective, the human psyche always seeks to preserve balance. When the ego pulls life too far away from its true path, the unconscious begins to send signs. At first, they are very gentle. A feeling of fatigue without a clear cause, a loss of interest in things that once excited you, or a vague discomfort whenever you think about a certain direction. But because the ego always wants to maintain control, it usually explains these signals in a very simple way. I just need to try harder. Carl Jung once said a very famous sentence: "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." What Jung meant here is that if we do not face the uncomfortable signals of the inner world, they will not disappear. On the contrary, they will gradually become stronger. There was once a comment left under a video on this channel that I still remember very clearly. A viewer shared, "I worked at my job for 8 years. For the past 2 years, every morning I woke up feeling heavy. I thought I was just tired, so I tried to work even harder. But then my body began to react. I could not sleep. I had frequent headaches, and eventually, I had to quit my job because of exhaustion." Looking back, I realized that I had known for a long time that the job was no longer right for me. This story is not rare. Many people experience similar signals without recognizing their true meaning. From Jung's perspective, such symptoms are sometimes not our enemies. They are like a language of the unconscious. When the soul cannot communicate with the ego through intuition or gentle emotions, it begins to use stronger signals. An easy way to imagine this is to think about the dashboard of a car. When the engine has a problem, the car does not stop immediately. First, a small warning light turns on. If the driver notices it, they can stop the car and check. But if the driver continues to ignore the signal and keeps driving as if nothing is wrong, the small problem can turn into a major failure that forces the car to stop. The human soul works in a similar way. At first, the signal is only a feeling of discomfort. Then it may become prolonged fatigue, and eventually it can grow into larger crises, such as burnout, loss of direction, or unexpected disruptions in life. Not because life wants to punish us, but because the unconscious is trying to force the ego to pay attention. One of the important things Jung recognized is that the unconscious always tries to bring a person back to the path of their true development. But the ego tends to cling to what is familiar. It fears change, fears losing control, and fears stepping into the unknown. That is why it often ignores the early signals of the soul. And when that happens, the unconscious must speak louder. This is why many people only truly change after a major event. It may be a crisis at work, a relationship that collapses, or a deep period of exhaustion. When they look back, they often realize that the signs had appeared long before. But because they were too busy or too afraid, they did not listen. In many spiritual traditions, The moments that force people to stop are sometimes seen as the way God guides them back to their true path, not through clear instructions, but through experiences that make it impossible to continue living in the old way. What the ego calls a crisis may sometimes be a profound correction of life itself. From Jung's perspective, the symptoms of the soul are not always things that must be eliminated immediately. Sometimes they are messages. They say that something in your life needs to be reconsidered. A part of you is being ignored. And if you continue to ignore it, life will continue to find ways to make you stop. The deeper lesson here is not to live in anxiety about every uncomfortable feeling. The real lesson is to learn to listen to the small signals before they become loud knocks on the door. When you begin to notice the subtle feelings of your soul, the things that make you feel alive, and the things that slowly drain your energy, you are learning an important skill: the ability to enter into dialogue with your own unconscious mind. And when people learn to listen to those signals earlier, they often do not need to wait for a major crisis to change. Sometimes, a simple realization is enough to adjust the direction of life, not through the force of the ego, but through a deeper understanding of what the soul has been trying to say all along. Number 4. The necessary collapse, when God begins to dismantle the wrong path. After the small signals of the soul have been ignored for too long, life sometimes has to create a larger interruption. A job ends, a relationship breaks apart, or a plan that once seemed certain suddenly collapses. To the ego, these moments often feel like loss and chaos. But in Carl Jung's view, these collapses are not always destruction. Sometimes they are a deep restructuring of the soul. Human beings often believe that life should move forward in a straight line. But psychological life does not function like a perfect plan. Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." What he meant was not that people must seek suffering, but that real growth often appears only after the old illusions of the ego begin to collapse. An ancient symbol that describes this process clearly is the story of the phoenix. In many cultures, the phoenix is not simply reborn. Before a new cycle of life can begin, it must first pass through a complete burning. The fire consumes the old body until only ashes remain. Yet from those ashes, a new bird appears. For ancient people, this story was not a tragedy, but a symbol of transformation. Some stages of life can end only through total dissolution before a new form can emerge. This idea does not exist only in mythology. In modern science, many living systems develop in a similar way. In neuroscience, when a person changes the way they think or learns something new, the brain must reorganize its neural connections. Old patterns gradually weaken so that new connections can form more strongly. From a scientific perspective, deep development rarely occurs without a kind of dismantling of the old structure. Human psychological life operates according to the same principle. When the ego builds a life based on beliefs or goals that no longer fit the deeper nature of the self, that structure sooner or later begins to crack. A job that once brought a sense of success suddenly feels empty. A relationship that once stood at the center of life becomes a source of tension. A plan you once trusted completely no longer carries the same meaning. On the surface, these moments look like failure. But if we look deeper, they may be signs that a deeper part of life is adjusting your direction. Jung called this process part of the journey of individuation. the journey of becoming who you truly are. In that journey, the ego is not always a reliable guide. Sometimes it must let go of its old images of itself before it can see what it truly needs to become. An easy way to imagine this is to think about rebuilding a house. If the foundation of a building has begun to crack, repainting the walls will not solve the problem. Sooner or later, the entire structure will become dangerous. In such situations, the only way to build something stronger is to dismantle the old structure and begin again from the foundation. From the perspective of the ego, this process looks like destruction. But from the perspective of development, it is a necessary preparation. And sometimes, when people look back on the whole process, they begin to feel that this dismantling was not entirely random. It feels as if God quietly guided their life by removing the paths that no longer belonged to them, in order to open a deeper direction that they could not previously see. It is precisely in those seemingly chaotic periods that many people begin to recognize things they had never seen before: their true values, deeper desires, and sometimes an entirely different path. Losing a job leads them to discover more meaningful work. The end of a relationship forces them to understand themselves more deeply. The failure of a plan pushes them to live according to what they truly believe. Collapse, therefore, is not always the end. Very often, it is simply the transition between two stages of life. Just as a seed must break open before a sprout can appear, some structures of life sometimes need to dissolve so that something new can grow. Thank you for accompanying this story halfway through its journey. Perhaps at some point in life, everyone has experienced a moment when an important part of their life suddenly collapsed. Yet sometimes those very moments become the beginning of an entirely new direction. Take a moment and remember a time when something in your life once broke apart: a job, a relationship, or a major plan. If you wish, share your story in the comments. Sometimes telling that journey not only helps others realize they are not alone, but also helps you see the deeper meaning of the path you have walked. Number 5. Synchronicity and timing: how God speaks through circumstances. But after an old path collapses and people are forced to release the plans they once believed were certain, life sometimes begins to reveal very subtle signs. Not grand miracles or clear answers. Instead, they appear as small coincidences, circumstances that arise exactly when you need them most. An unexpected meeting, a piece of information heard by chance. An opportunity appeared just when you thought every door had closed. In those moments, many people begin to feel that life is trying to tell them something. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, meaningful coincidence. It is when two events occur at the same time without a clear causal relationship, yet carry a profound meaning for the person experiencing them. Jung once wrote, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see." Meaningful coincidence always exists in life, but only those who pay attention can recognize it. Moments like these often appear in very ordinary situations. Have you ever thought about someone you had not contacted for a long time, and at that exact moment, your phone vibrated with a message from that very person? Or perhaps you were reflecting on an important decision in life and suddenly heard a sentence, a conversation, or a passage from a book that seemed to speak directly to what you were thinking. If taken separately, these events appear like random coincidences. But when they occur at important moments in life, they begin to feel different, as if a meaning is being sent to you. According to Jung, such coincidences reflect a deeper connection between the inner world of a person and the events that occur outside. When someone begins to change internally, when they release an old path, an old belief, or an old image of themselves, the surrounding world sometimes begins to rearrange itself in subtle ways. Events that once seemed unrelated begin to connect, like pieces of a puzzle slowly forming a larger picture. Imagine that life is like walking along a road covered in fog. You cannot see the entire path ahead, only a few steps in front of you. But every time you keep walking, the next part of the road gradually appears. And often, when you look back after a long journey, you realize that the important turns of your life appeared exactly at the moment when you were ready to step into a new direction. Human life often unfolds in a similar way. When we see events only through the perspective of the ego, they appear scattered and difficult to understand. But when we look back years later, we begin to notice that certain encounters, opportunities, and moments appeared in astonishing ways. Experiences like these lead many people to feel that life does not operate entirely through randomness. There are moments when circumstances appear at exactly the right time, as if a deeper intelligence were quietly adjusting their direction. For some people, this is simply luck, but for others, it is the way God guides human beings through the circumstances of life. What is remarkable is that this guidance rarely appears as clear instructions. It does not tell you what to do. Instead, it appears as a series of small signs. One door closes so that you cannot continue along the old path. An opportunity appears just as you are ready to enter a new stage. A person enters your life and changes the way you see the world. In Jung's perspective, moments like these often occur when people begin living closer to their deeper center, the part he called the self. When the ego no longer tries to control everything rigidly, people become more sensitive to the subtle signals of life. They begin to realize that life always has gentle ways of pointing toward a new direction. The important thing here is not to search for meaning in every coincidence. The important thing is to learn to notice the meaningful moments. When you stop forcing everything to follow the rigid plans of the ego, you begin to realize that life always has subtle ways of guiding you forward. Sometimes that guidance comes through an unexpected opportunity. Sometimes it comes through a meeting that seems random. And sometimes it comes through a small event that allows you to see your path in an entirely new way. The deeper meaning of such moments is that they remind human beings that life is not shaped only by personal effort. There is another dimension of life that we cannot completely control. When people learn to listen to that deeper dimension, they begin to realize that life sometimes speaks to us not through words, but through circumstances that appear at exactly the right time. And when someone begins to realize this, the way they see life also changes. They no longer feel that they must force everything to happen. Instead, they learn to walk with greater attention and trust. Because sometimes what guides a person is not the absolute effort of the ego, but the ability to recognize when God is opening a new door within the ordinary circumstances of life. Number 6. Inner peace, the final sign of divine guidance. It is here, after all the signs, the coincidences, and the unexpected doors that appear in life, that people begin to realize something deeper. The clearest sign that you are moving in the right direction does not always lie in external circumstances. It is not success, recognition, or results that can be seen immediately. The deepest sign often appears in a much quieter place, the inner state of the soul. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when a person begins to move closer to that true self, a very subtle change usually appears inside, a sense of peace they had never experienced before. During a Jungian therapy session, I once met a man in his early 30s named Stephen. He was neatly dressed, spoke clearly, and had a job many people considered desirable. But when the conversation became deeper, I noticed a fatigue in his eyes that was difficult to hide. Stephen said he had followed his current path for nearly 10 years. Everything made sense and was highly valued by society, yet inside he always carried a quiet tension. What was remarkable was that when he began speaking about the things he once loved, writing, studying psychology, and working with people, his voice slowed down, and in that moment, he seemed to touch a very real part of himself. From Jung's perspective, moments like these are very important, because the human soul rarely speaks to us through clear commands. It speaks through inner states. When a person moves too far away from their true path, the psyche often becomes tense, disordered, and drained of energy. But when they begin moving closer to what truly suits them, another feeling gradually appears. Not intense excitement, but a deep form of quietness. An easy way to imagine this is to think about wearing a pair of shoes that fits perfectly. When the shoes are the wrong size, every step feels uncomfortable, even if you keep walking. But when the shoes truly fit, you hardly think about them anymore. You simply walk naturally. Inner life is similar. When you move away from your path, there is always a subtle tension inside. But when you move in the right direction, a natural sense of peace begins to appear. What is important here is that inner peace does not mean life becomes easy. Our true paths can still contain many challenges and uncertainties, but the inner experience becomes completely different. Instead of feeling as if we must struggle against life, we begin to feel that we are moving with a deeper current of it. Many people, after looking back on their lives over time, realize that the clearest sign they were on the right path was not external results. It was the inner change. They became calmer. They no longer felt the need to constantly prove something to the world. A quiet stability began to appear in the way they lived, the way they thought, and the way they made decisions. In Jung's philosophy, this state often appears when a person begins to live closer to their deepest center, the part he called the self. When the ego no longer tries to control everything rigidly, a deeper order of the soul begins to reveal itself. And within that state, people begin to feel that they are moving in the right direction, even when the path ahead is still not completely clear. For many people, this experience also carries a clear spiritual dimension. When people stop forcing life and begin listening to their soul, they feel as if a deeper wisdom is quietly guiding their journey. And in those peaceful moments, many people feel that God is guiding them in the right direction, not through clear instructions, but through the stillness that appears when they move closer to who they truly are. This leads to a very important realization. The deepest guidance in life rarely comes from external noise. It comes from the ability to listen to your own inner state. When a path constantly makes you feel tense and disconnected from yourself, it is often a sign that the ego is forcing life in a certain direction. But when a choice brings calmness and clarity inside, even if it is still uncertain, it is often a sign that you are moving closer to what truly belongs to you. Therefore, sometimes the final sign of divine guidance is not a miracle or a clear answer.